All right.
Now I'm just going to hear that whole thing in my head in that voice.
You did that. I mean, I started it, but you
Yeah.
finished it.
I know. I really went in.
Oh man, whatever. I'm sure once we're done this episode, it'll all be wiped from your memory.
Well, unfortunately, it won't be because
That's
I'm gonna.
true. It's true.
I know what's happening. It's not ideal.
It never is. You picked a bad week for this. There's been other weeks that I think would have been more enjoyable for you to do this. Your test.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like there's not like a lot of excitement here. There's not like, it is what it is.
Yeah. It's tapioca pudding.
Yeah, nothing bad happened to me this week, but I'm also not like crazy excited about this.
That's
It's not like we're
understandable.
doing an episode of like, Ray Charles and Sam Cooke or something.
Oh my god. Stop. That would be too good.
That's true. Although we did already do Ray, of course.
Yeah.
And I just listened to some of him today too.
We already talked about Sam Cooke at one thing. Oh,
We've talked about Sam Cooke 1,000 times because so many people have covered his songs over the years.
Yeah, but I think we
So
talked
many.
about. Didn't we talk about? I can't remember if we just workshopped this or if we actually.
I think we just talked about it.
The villains in music.
Yeah, we only just talked about it.
Oh man, that's one we should really do.
Okay.
The villains of music, and we'll cover that piece of garbage who.
Yeah.
Well, you maybe didn't kill him. Whatever.
Sure, who
but
knows?
definitely killed him.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. Everybody I'm talking about is already dead.
Hey!
I mean,
Hey, Keith.
what's up, Keith? Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Podcast.
All right. Well, that makes one of us.
Yeah, well. What do you mean? We love
it.
Stop.
All right.
Can't, unless you're going to do the whole thing, and we'll have to pay some type of copyright claim directly to
right.
Will Smith for that.
That's true.
Who's got the time?
Not me. He's real hard up for cash, though.
Oh yeah, I'm sure he's probably only got like 60 million now.
Oh yeah,
which is poor for him. Let's look it up. It might actually, isn't he like one of the most bankable stars of the last like 25 years?
I'm sure that he's got it. His net worth is currently 350 million.
Yeah, yeah. It's like he's way more than 60. 60 would be poor for Will Smith.
Yeah. Yeah, 350 million he's doing just fine.
Huh? Yeah, that's.
I'll post. That's via my sources that say 2023.
So. I don't think his net worth would have taken too much of a hit from that.
No.
I mean,
all publicity is good publicity.
Crazy enough, it is.
I know.
I wish it wasn't so. That's why it's like you.
I was going to say, well, ask me that question again in a year when we know who the new president is, and tell me that not all publicity is good publicity, even if the publicity is this person is just shitting his pants while falling asleep in court for the 97 crimes he's committed, and still.
Oh no. I mean, it's a good game plan for how to become the president. I'll know what to do. I'll just start publicly shitting
just
myself.
babble incoherently and then make sure you commit a bunch of crimes. And then actively attack the like judge and jury and the prosecution, like very publicly and illegally. And then just
don't forget that part. Super illegally. Well, be nice to him. He's like 80.
That's true. And he's probably not allowed to be on all the speed that helps him shit his pants while he's in court to keep him awake. So.
Oh my god.
But hey, he was your previous president, and he's odds-on favorite to be the next one based on the most recent polling. So. I don't know what to tell you about humanity.
I mean, I think that tells you all that we need to know about humanity.
This is the world that we live in.
The game has been won. The rules of the game have been laid out. The exact formula is exactly right.
That's crazy. That's crazy. I can't wrap my mind around it.
You know what's better than talking about?
Let's talk about these bands.
Yeah.
Let's do this episode.
We'll have our I hate myself. I was about to say we'll have this discussion on our other podcast, our political podcast, Totem Polls. But come on, we should do that. Totem Polls, POLLS. And it's our political podcast.
Look, if you don't think that I will do that with you, you're crazy. I'll pull like 10 stories every week for us to read and react to. Like, I'll do it.
But we're already so busy.
I know.
Where will we have the time?
Doesn't matter. Right after this podcast? One. Right after this one on my normal weeks, when by the time we even start, I'm just like, hey, everybody, it's a new podcast.
Oh, no. Oh, God. Oh, Totem Polls really broke me because it was totally not on purpose.
Right.
And then I was like, wait. Okay. Nick.
Yeah.
Would you like to start the episode?
I would. I'm ready in 3, 2, 1.
Totem Talks.
Oh, come on.
You made me laugh.
Well, this is the story all about who.
I'm not doing it. Totem Talks. It's another podcast where we talk about music and stuff.
Okay, I'll take it.
Okay.
We're good, right? Everybody. We're settled in?
We're settled in. Oh, man, the immediate pre-recording conversation was absolutely unhinged, so we're bringing some type of energy to this episode.
We are.
Oh, man, and then Nick's face when I didn't go for the other choice of
I'm
song.
a little upset.
It's a 50-50 shot, man.
I know. Although there was a third song that I heard this week that I definitely knew, but I wasn't expecting it. I heard a lot of
songs this week that I knew, but...
Well, sure. I mean, specifically on the 6 albums we listened to for the podcast.
Oh, understood.
Nope, I heard plenty of other songs that I knew.
Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of Totem Talks. This is Season 7, Episode 21. And congratulations, Season 7, you can legally drink.
There it is.
It is
classic
very important.
Joke.
It's very important.
7th time you've made it.
And of a
million. It will not stop.
No, of course. Season 1 million, I'll still be telling that joke.
Yep.
Or whatever reanimated AI of
I was going to say like the downloaded AI algorithm of our brains.
Yeah, which is whatever. I'm sure it's already halfway there.
Yeah. It's a lizard on a chair.
You missed the chance to say Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Fuck.
You really goofed it there.
Nope, not going to say it with an accent. We're good.
All right. Anyway, we're still here. We're hanging out. We're having a good time. This is Totem Talks. Nick and I, Pat, are continuing our ceaseless quest to determine the greatest musical artist of all time. We have searched high and low through the rolling hills of Scotland to the under the sea to Sebastian the Crab. And everywhere in between. And my sincere question to you, as I ask every week.
Of course.
Did we find the greatest musical artist of all time today?
Do you want the long answer or the short answer?
I want whatever answer you want to give me.
Okay. Well, the short answer is no.
Okay.
The long answer would have been no.
That's fair. Fair and
Although I don't mean
understandable.
that in a mean way,
No,
as
listen.
we will discuss.
There is a wide gap between greatest musical artists of all time and bad artists.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
theoretically, most
And
artists should fall
theoretically, we
somewhere in
didn't.
the middle.
And I think that we found two that fell somewhere in between the
And that's
greatest of
fair.
all time and bad.
Well, hey, that's good to know at least. But speaking of which, Nick, would you like to tell us who we're covering today?
Oh, I'm going to be telling you. We're going to kick things off with the Proclaimers. And then we're going
What?
to, I know. And then we're going to move into Semisonic.
Yeah, of course we are. Oh man, I'm excited for this episode. This feels like we're on a bender, on a roll.
I'm ready. I'm in.
All right, I guess I'll take us in. I guess I'll get us started with the Proclaimers. So the Proclaimers are a Scottish rock duo formed in 1983 by twin brothers Craig and Charlie Reid. So that's what they are. They've been active all the way from 1983 until the present day, just hanging out. And we covered 3 albums. So we started with This Is the Story, which did prompt Nick to sing the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air theme song with a Scottish accent. I started by saying every time I hear the album title, that song is stuck in my head.
Yeah.
We are both from the Philadelphia area. Fresh Prince was
a show that was
popular show during our youth. And yeah, and then Nick started singing it in a Scottish accent. And now that is my...
can't get it out of my head.
Yeah,
man.
it's the elevator music in my brain right now.
Perfect.
But hey, that's okay. You know what? That album came out in 1987. We followed that up with Sunshine on Leith, which came out in 1988. And then we wrapped it up with Dentures Out from 2022.
Yes.
And I guess
Go right ahead.
I guess it's time for me to just keep on going. The Proclaimers were my artist this week. And I'll take us into This Is the Story. And here's what I'll say. This album is very clearly not American. And by that I mean the Reed twins accent, which we all know from the big song, which we'll get to, is so fucking strong on every single one of these. It is so interesting. The first song is about their accents, Throw the R Away. And this album is fun for me. It's just straight up fun. It's a good album in terms of like they do some things sonically different. So it's like considered like a folk punk album, which is an interesting blend of genres to call anything in the world.
Sure.
This is when they were initially looking at being like more of an acoustic duo.
Right.
And they do eventually transition into being more of like a rock duo. So I guess that's where like the folky part of it is. And I guess the punk part of it is like, it's a little sloppy-ish, but I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean like, it's just a little less rigid than some other genres. And maybe that's why they're calling it punk. Or maybe they're calling it punk because some of the subject matter is tense at times. Not in a bad, like you wouldn't know if you didn't like read and research the album, I think. But there's some stuff like the big song on this album, Letter from America, is it's an actually like a really topical song for the time about unemployment in America. And it was actually the first song that peaked for the Proclaimers. We all think of the song we're going to talk about next in the next album, but Letter from America was the first song that kind of put them on any map. It charted, it did really well for them in Britain and kind of woke people up to the Proclaimers, and I thought that was pretty interesting. I think the whole album was enjoyable, but very clearly just an album that I'm going to enjoy listening to once and then probably won't seek it out again.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. I do think this was a good record. For me, I sat there most of the time thinking like, okay, these are like really cool demos almost, but I'd love to hear this group with a full band. So I think the fact that this is their only album that's like this and we hear them with a full band afterwards is like kind of a double-edged sword, but I think mostly it helps this album to me because I'm like, okay, this is like their kind of acoustic experiment that they did. And then they have a bunch of other stuff with full instrumentation that also kind of works from there too. So listening to the other albums kind of retrospectively made me like the fact that it was acoustic a little bit more. It lets them get away with it. They have some interesting harmonies, and I think all in all, like they do as much as they can to keep each individual song as interesting as possible, considering that it's just like an acoustic duo, like a little bit of hand percussion and an acoustic guitar, and a lot of it sounds live to me. Like a lot of these, it sounds like they're like kind of gathering all their stuff around a couple of mics and just doing it. I could be wrong, but it had that sound to it.
I would agree with you that it did have that sound to it.
Yeah. So all I didn't really know what to expect coming into it. And there was one song that I kept thinking was going to be something else. I'm going to burn your playhouse down, and I wonder if it was like an homage to "I'm Going to Tear Your Playhouse Down," which is like a big R&B song back in the
Maybe.
like early 70s. We actually listened to Ann Peebles' version of that tune. And and actually after listening to this record, I went back and listened to "I Can't Stand the Rain" by Ann Peebles because it put that in my brain again. So that's another positive for this record because I also love Ann Peebles. And now I'm going to move into "Sunshine on Leith."
Do it.
And here's the thing. This is the album that kind of solidified the first one for me. It made me feel better about it because now I'm getting a full band all the way throughout. And I feel like that orchestration goes a long way with this group. Like it just makes everything sound a little bit better. It makes the song sound a little bit more full. And there are some good things to pluck out from a lot of the musicians who join them on this record. There's a song called "Then I Met You," which has like a really killer country style guitar solo on it that was only like 4 bars or something, and it left me like, oh, I could have taken like 16 bars of that one. Like it was really well done. So I do appreciate that they brought in some other really good musicians here. "I'm on My Way" was the other song that I was like, oh wait, I know this song. Did you recognize that one as well?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm trying to think of why I would have known that. Is there a reason why I would know that song? Or have I just heard it?
It was in the soundtrack for Shrek.
Aha.
I'm on my
Okay.
way. Yeah.
Okay. That's probably where.
It's
Yeah.
definitely from Shrek.
Okay. That helps. The weirdest song on this album for me was definitely the last one.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, Gene, where the last like 2.5 minutes of it are just them going like, oh, Gene! Oh, Gene! I'm like, all right, that's a choice.
Oh my god.
But most of it I thought was like solid. Like I got through this. I'm like, okay, the Proclaimers they're not just a one-hit wonder. Like the rest of the music is enjoyable.
Yeah, I would argue that the rest of the music is almost better, but maybe that's just
Sure.
because I've heard "I'm Gonna Be"
Enough
a
times that I don't need to hear
bajillion
it.
times. So it's like there's nothing left to explore in that song for me.
Yeah.
I know the lyrics because I've sang the song with the band.
Mhm.
I've heard it a billion times at bars and in anything in popular music. And yeah, so regardless, I completely agree with you. This album is a big step forward in what I wanted. Weirdly enough, you would think like an acoustic folk duo wouldn't be better with a full band. But I think this is one of the few exceptions where adding in those backing musicians and like really filling out that sound with the style of music that the Proclaimers are writing, the Reed twins are writing, you get a lot of growth in the band. And I think the strength of the songs really shines through. And again, this is another album where it's called like folk and pub rock, which pub rock is such a wide genre.
Yeah.
It just encompasses like
I
most
don't know what
rock.
to hear this, but it could be. I could hear it in a bar.
Yeah. So regardless, it's a good album. There's a lot of difference between the songs, which I was not expecting. Like, and they do fun things. Like this is a group where they're not afraid to have fun in their songs, but
Hmm.
they're also not afraid to have like some slightly more reserved numbers,
Sure.
which was refreshing. I was genuinely surprised by that.
How did you feel about O'Gene?
Ogene was amazing. It might have been my favorite song we listened to this season. Oh, Gene.
You know what it
Anyway,
made me think of? The
what?
scene in The Office where Dwight and Andy are just like, "Oh, D,"
Oh no, you're
because
not wrong.
that's pretty much what it sounded like for a while at the end there.
Okay. Anyway, I'm gonna take us into Dentures Out. So this is quite a gap. We went from 1988 to 2022. So we're talking 34 years.
Hmm.
That's quite a jump.
Which, funnily enough, this album's runtime is 33 exactly.
Whoa.
Mhm. So it didn't quite make it to 34 years. But what are
But
the
luckily
odds?
they did.
Yeah.
Anyway, Dentures Out. I think this is an interesting album for me in that you hear the age in their voices, you hear that they've grown. The style of music is just a little bit less fleshed out, I want to say. And I think that's like all the way through. So you're getting shorter run times. Most of these songs are
Very.
under 3 minutes. I think
All but one.
all but one is under 3 minutes. So it's a 13 track album that runs 33 minutes. That's
33.
crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So you're getting like it's almost like the twins wrote a bunch of almost songs and then recorded and released them. Like every one of them felt a little different. It felt like there wasn't like an album here. And I'm not saying that like it's a bad thing because that's how a lot of music used to be. It used to just be a collection of singles. This album, I definitely felt that. There was a couple songs where they did the kind of prototypical reflective moments in songwriting that like an older group will do. They were done pretty well. They weren't done like in a super cheesy way, but they definitely still had moments of like fun that made the Proclaimers the Proclaimers. The first song, Dentures Out, is one of those. Like the whole thing is it's like they're poking fun at themselves that they're old now.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's kind of the
Mm-hmm.
vibe. And I dug it. For what it was, I dug it. But again, the Proclaimers are a band that I'm gonna go, oh, the Proclaimers, that's fun. And then not
Sure.
listen to their stuff.
Yeah, I'll tell you, you already hit on what was like clearly the biggest issue for me, which was the track length for all these,
Yeah.
because I feel like had more, or at least a handful of these songs been fleshed out a little bit more, this could have very easily been, I think, my favorite album from them because there was a lot to like in the writing.
Yeah.
I think that there was melodies were fairly clever, and I think like even for me when I'm mostly listening to music first, like the lyrics are good on a lot of these songs, like the lyrics are very good
I fully agree with you
throughout.
on that. I think
So
I was surprised at how strong the lyric writing was really on all three albums.
mhm,
And then I guess really if you think about it, I know it's a meme worthy song, but the lyrics in I'm Gonna Be are like pretty in depth.
hmm,
Like they're talking about, no matter what goes on in my life, like I'm going to get to you. I'm going to find my way to you. I'm going to be there for you. I'm going to be that
sure,
guy for you.
yeah,
And
but like that's not the subject matter here in the third album,
no,
which
no,
is
no.
why I'm super interested in a lot of what they have to say,
Yeah.
because some of it is definitely like, I mean, a large amount of it is definitely cultural critique, which I think is done really
It's
well. Like I think,
arguably our favorite thing that people write about
yeah,
or our
and I
least favorite. And it's very close. The line
yeah,
is super thin.
right. Yeah, so I mean, and I think I liked the fact that their voices have mellowed for this,
Mhm.
I think helps them like in terms of long-term listenability.
I would agree.
You know, not that I
It
didn't
does.
enjoy some of the accent, but like I couldn't just sit there and listen to like the world's most obnoxiously overdone accent. Um, you know,
Oh, to be
for
fair
like
to
hours
them,
and on hours
it's
on end.
that's just their actual
Oh, no, no,
accent.
no. I know. It's like it's very intense.
Yeah. But
It's very intense.
it does make me a little interested because I would assume 2022. So looking at them, they're 62 now.
Okay.
So you're talking 60. I would say probably their voices, if and this is just like what I know from listening to music, probably the 2009 album Notes and Rhymes forward. So those 5 albums might be where we start to hear that mellowing.
Hmm.
Because I think the one in two, maybe the one in 2007, but like usually once you're in your 50s
Sure.
or like late 40s and 50s is when you can really start to hear the mellowing of your voice throughout those 10 years and then on. And then it's kind of a question of how long you keep your voice in good shape. And that
Yeah.
requires a lot of care.
Sure.
So, I'm no ear, nose, and throat doctor or
That's true.
vocal
That's true.
specialist. I know what about vocals from being told I was singing wrong, and that's how I gave myself nodes.
Right.
That and the one summer where we had 3 times as many gigs, and then we had like we had a 3 gig weekend, and I was sick for all 3.
Yeah.
And like a month
That
later,
was
I was
it.
like, something's wrong with my voice.
That was
My
about
doctor
it.
was like, you have nodes. It's like,
Okay.
that's a terrible thing you told me.
Yeah, not ideal.
But
All
hey,
right.
that's the past.
Fair enough. But yeah, I mean, look, it's they aged well is what I'm trying to say in terms
Yeah.
of their voices and in terms of their writing. So again, I think if a couple of these songs had been like in the 3 to 4 minute range, even just like because all of them, just as I was like really getting into it, it was over.
Yep.
It's like
I couldn't
but
agree
this is
more.
good. Okay, it's over.
It felt like a demo album.
Yeah,
So, I mean, that's a bunch of good songs. It's honestly a good thing that a band that was known for one song by the end of the 3rd album, we're like, I wish that album was
yeah, for sure.
15 minutes longer
Mm-hmm.
with some extra flushing between those songs.
For sure.
Okay.
All right.
So I got some things to say. In terms of the unique thing about this group, it's really hard to top like the thing everybody knows about them,
Right.
which is
Yeah.
this is like a Scottish twin duo rock band situation. That's pretty fucking unique by itself.
Sure.
Like, I name another rock duo that are Scottish twins. I challenge you.
No.
Oh, there you go. Exactly. But I did have another one which I thought was cool, and this is just a little funny to me. So obviously, to the average listener, the Proclaimers are a one-hit wonder.
Sure.
If you're our age, they might
Well,
be a
then,
1.5-hit wonder for
yeah.
the Shrek hit.
I'm on my way.
But they're a one-hit wonder. I'm gonna be 500 miles. That's the song.
Yeah.
Ironically, before recording the album, This Is the Story, the Proclaimers recorded a demo album. And the person they worked with for that demo album was Kevin Rowland, who was the frontman for Dexy's Midnight Runners.
Okay.
Also a very famous one-hit wonder band for Come On Eileen.
Right.
So I just thought that was a little fun fact. Like they were produced and trained by a one-hit wonder artist to become a one-hit wonder artist.
Yeah.
Which I thought was fun.
Although I think Dexy's Midnight Runners is one of those bands that's just like way more popular in the UK than they ever hit. Like one hit made it through to the United States, but like they were.
Well, technically, that's really true of the Proclaimers too. They have
Yeah,
some certifications in other countries.
Yep.
I'm speaking as like an American listener with that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the highlight. I'm not gonna just say I'm gonna be. It's pretty much I'm gonna be, but they really, like I said, they had 2 hits. Letter from America reached number 3 in the UK and really kind of put them on the map, which came out in 1987, and then of course I'm gonna be in 1988, which topped the charts in Australia, Iceland, and New Zealand. And then, of course, you can go with Sunshine on Leith, the album by itself, which went
Sure.
platinum in Britain, double platinum in Australia, double platinum in Canada, gold in America, and gold in New Zealand. Which that last one is weird to me because that's got to be like 8 copies sold.
Yeah, it is.
The
It
population
is.
of New Zealand is so small in comparison to some of these other countries.
Well, it's 8, and it's split between Kiwis the people and Kiwis the birds.
And
So,
kiwis the fruit.
and yeah, there's one that's sold to the fruit.
Yeah. Now, anyway, going forward, lowlights for the band, I really couldn't find anything. The only thing I could even find was in the mid 90s, they went on a small hiatus. But it was mostly just for like family commitments. Like they decided to like take some time off and be family men, and like that was it. It didn't really feel like a low light, but I guess there was like a 7-year period of time where they weren't making music.
Sure, yeah.
So I guess that's the low light.
Yeah, wow, there's some interesting parallels between these bands.
Yeah. Well, hey, I'm excited. And similarly, I could not find a meanest thing.
I love that. That's
And
another parallel.
I'll tell you what, there was a lot of nice things.
Love it.
So that's the thing. So the Reeds are passionate fans of Hibernian, which is a football club.
Mhm.
And their song Sunshine on Leith has been adopted as the club's anthem, which plays in the part of Edinburgh.
Nice.
And the Proclaimers in 2022 sponsored the Hibernian Girls Academy under-12s football team. So that's a
Very
pretty
cool.
cool thing. Some other things they did, they're also well-known supporters of Scottish independence. They have been
Okay.
activists for the Scottish National Party.
That checks
They
out.
went on a promotional tour of Britain in March 2007, which expressed their views. They also participated in 2006 in a campaign to free a fellow Scot, Kenny Ritchie, from a death row sentence in Ohio,
Oh, nice.
which he ended up being released and gave a plea bargain for manslaughter for his crime, and time served was enough, and he was able to go back to Scotland. Very interesting case. If you want to read up on it
Yeah,
yourself.
I was going to say, I'm trying to think of what case would there be where someone committed what was ruled must
Double
have been.
murder.
Okay, I was going to say it must have been like a first degree murder for him to be put on death row.
So the long
And then to
short
go
of it,
up to plead a death row murder down to manslaughter doesn't. I mean, I'm not a lawyer.
the long and short of it is the 2 women died. Well, 1 woman and 1 child died in a fire that Kenny Ritchie was believed to have started
Okay.
to get back at his ex-girlfriend. There was a history of mental illness. There was a bunch of circumstantial evidence of whether or not he even started the fire. And
Sure.
it kind of seemed like the plea deal / time served was in lieu of a full exoneration because he just wanted to go home anyway. So it's
Gotcha.
like the Innocence Project was like, this is one of the most open and shut cases of assumed innocence that we've covered.
Right.
So I read a little bit about it during my research, but I would encourage you to do your own research on it.
That's interesting.
It's an interesting case.
Okay.
But they've also, they're very big speakers of independence. They spoke out for Welsh independence as well.
Oh, interesting.
They
That's
were
something you rarely hear
supporters-
about.
Yeah, they were supporters of the Alba Party in 2021. So, big activists, big political, social activists, as well as doing things for their own personal community by sponsoring the Hibernian Girls Academy Under 12s football club. So, some good stuff from them on that.
Cool.
And now the 6 degrees. Here's the thing, Nick. I have a real one.
Okay.
And then
I want a
I
fake
have
one then.
a fun one.
Give me the fun one.
Here's the fun one. The song I'm Gonna Be plays a very important role in multiple episodes of the sitcom How I Met Your Mother.
Okay.
The single cassette is stuck in Marshall Erickson's car. And so that song just constantly plays while the car is on. So on that show, Marshall Erickson is played by Jason Segel,
That's true.
who was in a movie called I Love You, Man,
I can vouch for that.
with Paul Rudd. And we covered that movie on our other podcast, Popcorn Perspectives, which is
Yes.
technically on hiatus, I guess.
I guess.
Paul Rudd, I don't know if you're familiar with this, played Ant-Man in the Marvel Cinematic
It's all making sense so far.
And in the movies, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the Avengers Endgame film, there was another character called Groot who was played by Vin Diesel.
Thank you. Okay, what's the real one?
The real one is one of the artists that was very, very intensely impacted by the album This Is the Story was the Bare Naked Ladies. So former member Stephen Page called the album absolutely perfect for us. It was exactly what we were, two guys with acoustic guitars singing in harmony, all the energy of punk rock, but with just acoustic guitars and voices. And Ed Robertson said it was the best thing he'd ever heard.
Well, there you go.
So we covered the Bare Naked Ladies, and it makes absolute sense that first album was influenced them in their early career.
Yeah.
So that's the actual 6 degrees.
I dig it.
And that is the Proclaimers.
Excellent. Let's move on to Semisonic. All right. I'm having a doubt. And here's the thing. What I know to do is when in doubt, you pee it out. So,
of course. Always
I'll be right back.
Oh, man. All right. So we got one viewer. I'm assuming that's just either it's actively Keith or it's passively Keith. Or it's me. I don't know. Who knows? I've been here the whole time. No. It's a long pee from Nick today. Normally his pees are shorter than this. I apologize for everybody who has to endure the long pee break. But luckily he did put the headphones on his microphone, so the microphone is going to proceed with the next portion of this podcast. Sponsored by microphones, but, not any specific microphone, because we would need money to be sponsored by anyone. But that's okay. I'll say unsponsored. If you're looking to get a microphone, Rode is the way we went. My microphone is also a Rode. It's the same mic as Nick's because I got mine first and then said, hey, you should get this. It's better than the cheapo crap we were using. But, that's fun. I'm also using the Rodecaster Pro 2 mixer. I'm a Rode guy.
Well, nope.
Please.
This is a story all about how.
So I said, Keith, I told him, because he did more than that for me before we went on. And I said, he's got very Craig Ferguson energy in his Scottish accent. I did initially say Craig Robinson, but that's not
true. Very wrong.
Very wrong. Whatever. I could say Craig T. Nelson, who is Mr. Incredible.
That also.
And I believe he's on the sitcom Coach, but Mr. Incredible
that sounds right.
Is what we know him from. I'm assuming you'd see The Incredibles. I know you were
I've seen
11 when they came out, but that's still young enough.
Yeah, I've seen The Incredibles. It's been a very long time, but I've seen it.
I feel like you wouldn't have seen The Incredibles 2.
That's correct.
Because I also haven't seen that.
Well, then I definitely have not.
Yeah. That would be an interesting list. Just like, what movies have you seen that I haven't?
That's a great question. Cannibal Holocaust?
I've not seen.
I've seen it like 10 times.
You're gonna get a lot.
It's horrible.
I haven't seen.
It's like the year after we graduated high school.
Yeah. Oh, I know of it.
Dylan McGuckin had a DVD of it that he brought to my house, and then just like 20 of us watched it like 10 times over the course of that summer. Brian Ross, Dan, Ed, John Klein and Amy Gust, Josh
So,
McCall, John Granados, Kevin McGee, like everyone in that
oh, Kev.
sphere watched that movie like Chip.
So I can't with Dylan McGuckin because there was a drama class,
Mm-hmm.
and the drama class had the show. Dylan McGuckin was in it. I was like auditing the class because I just had
Okay.
a free period and like I wasn't actually in drama because it was
Yeah.
my junior year,
Okay.
and it was somebody even forget who it might have been one of the thieves if I can't remember, but
Okay.
Keith might know because Keith knows everybody and remembers
Sure.
everything. But they just came up with this song as part of their skit, and it just said, "If
I
I
was a
were a
girl,
boy,
I'd
I'd
be
be Dylan
Dylan
McGuckin."
McGuckin. Yeah, I remember
Yeah,
that.
every time I hear his name, that's still
Yeah. That
cemented into my
was that
brain.
part of, I know he did like a skit with Kevin.
Yeah,
Or that whole thing.
I think it got like morphed into a couple other things because
Yeah.
it was a catchy ass
Right.
song.
I remember we were going to that show. Ed and I
Okay.
were driving, and right at that little like roundabout by the park,
Yeah,
Ed popped his tire, and we got a flat on our way to go see it. And
nice.
so we did not make it.
Oh man, that's great. Now you've given me another
That was what I was
elevator
doing
music in my
that
brain.
time when I was like 16 going on 17. I was 16
Going on 7. Although, let's be fair, if you're looking at that show, if you're looking at that movie, Liesel was 16 going on 29. as quoted by Schmigadoon. Like all of those golden age musical teenagers were like in their late 20s.
I mean, that feels like at least up until very recent times, almost anyone who was playing a teenager in a movie was in their 20s at least.
Yeah. Well, look
And
at
most of them were like not young looking 20s, like maybe a
no.
little bit of youth in the face, but like big football player bodies and shit. It's like, all right, you're not 17, sir.
Even up until like the 2000s with like Smallville.
Sure.
All
It's like
of
not
those.
every single person in high school looked like Jay Colbert did.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Yeah, hey, whatever. All right, let's talk about Semisonic.
Yes.
Let's do it. Let's semi it.
I'm ready when you are.
I'm ready.
3, 2, 1.
Semisonic is an American rock band formed in Minneapolis in 1995, and they were active from 1995 to 2001, and then from 2006, and then again in 2017 to the present day.
Yes.
So those are their years active. We covered 3 albums. We started with Great Divide, which came out in 1996. We followed that up with Feeling Strangely Fine from 1998, and then Little Bit of Sun from 2023.
Yes.
And that's what I've got.
And I will start with Great Divide. And I'll tell you, I mean, the first thing I heard was the like nostalgia of it. Like it very firmly sits in the 90s. Like this is an alternative rock album from the 90s that it seems to have like a little bit of everything from that decade. And I think that's a good thing. Like there is a lot there are a lot of interesting parts written throughout, and none of the songs feel the same. So if you have, that 90s alt rock sound and none of it's not getting boring and you've got some cleverly written parts and, everything keeps kind of like, okay, you've got yourself a good album. And this is not the album with the hit either. Just like
true.
with the Proclaimers where you got to wait till your second album for that. I think, again, like the Proclaimers, this is the band that does have some solid use of harmony. You do get a little bit of that mixed in. You get just a couple of really cool moments in songs. Like I really like the ending. There's like a fake ending and then like a thing that comes back in when you think Falling is going to be over and then it isn't. You get a different lead vocalist all of a sudden on track 11 for In Another Life, which is John Munson, which I thought was really interesting. He sounded good. And the closer on this album, I'll Feel For You, had some like really cool, like acoustic Zeppelin-y type chords in it, that were just feel like a little different, had some interesting extensions on them. And all in all, like I enjoyed the record, like we're 4 records in, and I haven't really come across anything I didn't like yet. None of these are my absolute favorites of all time, but I haven't heard a single thing that I thought was bad. And I really appreciate that.
It's
We're on
rare.
a roll.
It is rare. And I'll tell you, I agree with a lot of what you're saying. This album is very dated in the fact that it cements itself firmly where it is in the mid '90s. However, that's not a bad thing. I think both of us really enjoy the mid
Mhm.
'90s sound when done correctly,
Right.
and I think this is done correctly. I do think it teeters a little bit more than you think on repetitiveness at times, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. There was definitely a song on this album, and I wish I wrote it down, but I was driving when I listened to this
Okay.
album. That the intro of it was like very similar to Closing Time. And I was like,
Okay.
what's happening?
Well, they just knew that was a good idea.
And it was. And that's fine. I did recognize a song on this album, so you knew too.
Oh, I think it might have been the first song that
song.
sounded like vaguely familiar to me.
So if you've ever seen the film 10 Things I Hate About You,
Which I have at some point in my
yeah,
life.
and it was featured in that movie.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is one of the Shakespeare
Okay.
thing. That was the 10 Things I Hate About You was the Taming of the Shrew.
Yeah, right.
But as told through like a 1999 rom-com.
Sure.
But anyway, I'm not gonna harp because I agree with a lot of what you're saying. It's a good album, good use of harmony, good vocals, good interesting melodies at times. Like post alternative rock, post grunge is a good genre for this because it definitely felt like you could see grunge in the rearview mirror of this album at times.
Sure, but it was definitely not ever like we've listened to some post grunge albums that were essentially just like this is like lazy pop music, but with some distorted guitar chords, and that's not what this is at all.
Not at all. This is post grunge in the fact that they take
It came
some
out
of
after
the
grunge, and there's influence.
Yeah, they took some of the chord progressions that were popular in grunge music and like really tilted them on their head for an indie pop record almost. In a good way. In a good way. And now I'll take us into Feeling Strangely Fine. And again, in comparison to The Proclaimers, the first track on their second album is their big song Closing Time, which, don't let Justin Timberlake fool you, was not released by Third Eye Blind if you've seen the movie Friends with Benefits.
I have, but I don't remember that joke.
Yeah, Friends with Benefits. It was him and Mila Kunis,
Mila
and
Kunis,
he
yeah,
insisted that this song was by Third Eye Blind. And
What
it's
an
not.
idiot.
It's by Semisonic. And it's a good song. It's a catchy song. It's ironic to me that it opens the album. It's called Closing Time.
Yeah. But you know why they wrote it?
Why did they write it?
So Dan Wilson, the primary songwriter, who I'll talk a lot about later, basically they were playing a lot of gigs with their original music, and the band was like, okay, come on, this is starting to get serious. We need a new closing song. Like our closer is not good enough. We need a song that we can end out our shows on.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, if that is what you're tasking me to write, then that's what I'm going to write. And there you go.
Okay. Hey. I love that energy.
Yeah, he said he stole like several of the lyrics from like common phrases he would hear like bouncers and security at bars and things like that say, and then he used them and wrote from there.
I super love that energy of like, I need to write a song for Closing Time. I'm gonna call it Closing Time.
Yeah.
It's like Sarah Bareilles when she wrote Love Song.
Right.
Which is like her record label wanted her to write a love song. She's like,
Yeah.
oh, I'll write a love song. I'll call it Love Song. And it's absolutely not a love song. Love that. I love that totally. But, continuing on with the album, it was definitely like growth in the right direction for them. You're getting a lot of their same influence. You're getting a good overall sound still. It's only a couple years, so it's not like too much has changed here. But again, it's really enjoyable. I think Dan Wilson is a very good songwriter.
Yeah, oh, for sure.
Who's writing these, innocently complex melodies. And by that, I mean, like, they don't sound complex when you're listening to them at all, but when you're actively listening for the movement in the melody, you're hearing it. It's there,
Mhm.
which is a more difficult task than you would expect because it's very easy to write something that sounds hard but is easy. It's not as easy to write something that sounds easy but is hard.
Sure. Yeah, no, I agree with you. Um, and my take on this album is very similar. I mean, I think it's a good album. I like their first album. I think that you're just getting a slightly more polished version of that. I think that the songs are pretty well differentiated here. I think there's some solid harmony parts throughout. The songwriting to me is mostly pretty clever. Like it's good rock, pop rockish. Um, Writing, it's a clear example of, yeah, the first song is the one gigantic hit, but they're pretty much writing on that level or above for the rest of everything that they do. I enjoyed it thoroughly, and I would definitely be happy to hear Semisonic again.
Yeah.
And that I really wanted to go way into the future, into 2023, to talk about Little Bit of Sun. And it has been some time since they released their last record coming into this one. It's been 22 years. And so I wasn't really sure, again, what to expect. Bands take 22-year hiatuses between albums and you get wildly varied products. And I don't know if the time off helped or hurt them, but I know that the album that came out in 2023 was good. I know that I enjoyed these songs. I think it's a little bit softer edged um, than what they were doing before, but also they're at least 22 years older. Like it's not uncommon for artists to have a little bit of mellowness to their sound after that much time from their earlier work. And I still think like it's really well written, clever pop rock. It's pretty variable in style. Like the songs don't get boring or sound repetitive. Um, I mean, like there's not a ton of music here in terms of Semisonic because they've only released 4 albums. But I heard all 3 of these albums. I think there's stuff to like about all of them. I don't think there's anything bad on these records. I think all of a sudden this is a group that's like kind of pushing for that 4th album to be a contender as like maybe something we would consider picking for best of the rest because everything that they put out is good.
Yeah, and listen, I agree with a lot of what you're saying. My positives all line up with yours. This is a good overall album. I like that they have leaned a little more into the like power pop rock ish. They've kind of sloughed off the mortal coil of post grunge,
Sure, sure.
which makes sense because post grunge this far away from grunge,
Yeah, no.
it's
It's
it would
just
it would have dated them a little too much.
it's just anything that's labeled post grunge, post like 2000 is just like pop music but with distorted chords.
Right. So I like that they weren't going for that. The only thing that I'll say, this album more than the other two we listened to did start to touch on the repetitiveness a little more for me.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's just because there was slightly less variance in the melodies and more focus on the lyrics. Because it definitely felt like a more reflective album.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned softer edge, so maybe that
Yeah,
combination just kind of made the songs bleed together a bit more.
sure. There was
Not,
definitely more of that harder edge that you could see kind of mixing in
yeah,
um, with things earlier in their career.
yeah. So it's not like super negative thing for me. They're not like they're by far not the biggest perpetrators of this that we've come across. It's just if I had to critique this album at all, that would be the thing I noticed. Also, you're gonna love this. I forgot. I wanted to bring it up, but I completely forgot. For their big album, Feeling Strangely Fine, Robert Costco gave it a dud, a bomb from his consumer's
Classic.
guide. Just thought that was really funny. I feel like every time that man has an opinion, we have the opposite opinion.
It's very, very frequently.
Oh, it's so funny. His guy, he's got a picture on Wikipedia. It's just such. It's exactly what I would have expected. Yeah, it's literally just him going
Yeah,
like he just looks miserable.
and he is,
Hold
and
on, I
so
can
he
do
shall
this.
remain.
Ready? I can show you. I'm gonna show you.
Oh God, yeah, he
Look at
looks.
him.
Oh God,
Just so miserable. For
he does
anybody
look
not
miserable.
watching our live stream every Thursday, roughly 5:30 p.m., you're missing out on the picture of Robert Christgau that
He's
I'm
an angry
showing to
man,
Nick currently. An
or at least he
angry,
was in
angry man.
2005 or 2006, whatever that said.
Yeah, the 2006 pop conference.
Okay.
That's what I can tell you there.
Well, hey, can I tell you a little bit about Semisonic?
Tell me everything about Semisonic.
All right, I would like to. So here is the thing. I'm going to start with low light. A
Okay,
lot of their stuff is going to be tied together for me.
I'm ready.
So very much like the Proclaimers. So you gave the years for Semisonic, but they did never officially break up. There was never a time like it was just they stopped making music for and playing together for long stretches because they just had like busy schedules with a bunch of other projects and things that they were doing, especially Dan Wilson. And like they just were like, oh, we'll get around to it. It would be nice. Like they played a bunch of one-offs and things like that that we didn't that that aren't mentioned on their years together on the Wikipedia page. Um, but like they just were mostly not together because they're busy, and that sucks.
Yeah,
Um,
life
but
do be getting in the way.
yeah, and I had a bit of a hard time finding specifics on this. But for their nicest thing, it is mentioned that on their website that they've gotten together to play several charity concerts over the years, but they don't necessarily mention for whom. Although I then later read in an interview with Dan Wilson that he's very involved with like children's hospital related type charities. So that's probably at least some of it
Sure.
that they're doing charity events for children's hospitals, which is awesome. You got to love it. So everything else is going to be tied together. So highlight 6 degrees unique. And so for their highlight, obviously, like there's the feeling strangely fine and there's closing time, which are like the obvious peaks of this band. Like it hard to argue against that. One thing that I thought was interesting though is about Dan Wilson himself and a quote from someone you've probably heard of in reference to Dan as like a writer and an artist and what he's able to do. And this person said, "Oh, I just had it in front of my face. Oh yeah,
It's a weird thing to say. It's a weird quote.
yeah. I'm sorry. It's a very strange quote. Hold on. Now oh no, it's just right in front of my face, and now I don't have
Oh
the quote
no.
anymore.
Don't
Hold
you
on.
hate when that happens?
I really do. Okay, I've got it again. So the quote is, nah, I lost it again. I keep seeing it and then it's gone.
You lost it a
What's
second time.
happening? Oh
Oh
God.
no.
Okay. Dan had me on my hands and knees, crying my eyes out. There's just something about him that makes me completely open up as a composer. And so when somebody says that about you, about like your talents as a writer, like that's pretty high praise. That's about as high of praise as you can get. When Adele says that about you, that's like pretty impressive.
That is very impressive.
Um, so going on with that Adele thing, did you know that Dan Wilson co-wrote several songs from and produced 21, and he was a co-writer on Someone Like You, and One and Only, and one other song?
I'm gonna say that we probably mentioned that at some point
Maybe.
when we covered Adele.
Yeah, but why would we have been thinking of Dan Wilson at the time? We didn't cover Semisonic. We didn't know who he was.
Well,
Um,
you know what, Nick? I don't know. I
that's right.
can't tell you.
He also co-wrote the song "Treacherous" with Taylor Swift on her album
Oh,
"Red." He co-wrote the song "White Horse" with Chris Stapleton. He co-wrote the song and like 6 of the songs on the album this came out on. Not Ready to Make Nice with the Chicks. And he has also written and produced music for, and I cut out all of the artists that we have not covered on the show. He has co-wrote and produced songs for KT Tunstall, The Bravery, Weezer, Keith Urban, Josh Groban, Sarah and Sean Watkins from Nickel Creek, Gavin DeGraw, James Blunt, Leon Bridges, Celine Dion, and Tom Morello, amongst dozens of others.
So what I'm hearing is there's a reason they were too busy to make another Semisonic album for 21 years.
Yes, and
22
these are
years.
all of the
And
reasons.
it's that Dan
Wilson is
was
extremely
just
successful.
ghostwriting and producing for every major artist of all time.
Exactly.
That's funny.
And that's kind of the thing that's unique about the band is that while they have one giant hit and big album that they were known for, the only reason that Dan Wilson has Grammys, he has multiple Grammy Awards, is because of his work with like Adele and the Chicks and these other artists. That's where he actually got his like industry recognition. Was from all of that stuff. Like, I mean, it's insane how many people have worked with Dan Wilson. So I did not realize that he was like that pivotal to songwriting in the 2000s. So good for you, Dan.
Yeah. Good for him.
And that's everything because the highlight, the 6 Degrees, unique, they all.
It's all lining up.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? I think that kind of just leaves one thing.
It's time to give scores.
Yeah.
And here's the thing about both of these bands.
They're one-hit wonders.
Right. Although I have to give the Proclaimers a little bit of credit. I mean, both of these artists have had like a huge hit, but it's also been like repeatedly reinforced over years and years and years of time through other media.
Yeah.
Like neither of these songs have ever come anywhere close to dying. They're involved in extremely popular media that they get used for. I don't think like it's one of the couple of those songs that I think are just going to always be in the public consciousness.
I would agree with you on that.
And the Proclaimers do have the song from Shrek that I'm counting as a second hit.
They do.
Or
and
a partial
Letters from America was an actual bona fide first hit for them.
Right. As long as you're not in the United States, then yes.
Yeah.
So I'm giving them a little bit more credit. I'm probably going to give the Proclaimers a little bit higher of a score here. I'm giving them both a little bit above 1.
Yeah. I honestly, the score that I had for the Proclaimers was a 1.5.
All right.
And I think Semisonic could easily live in that 1.2, 1.3 range.
It's 1.2 is already written.
Yeah.
The Proclaimers in their 11 albums.
11 studio albums.
Gets them to a 5.8 for breadth of work to start.
Yep.
They have 1 RIAA gold and then like a smattering of other European and oceanic
the
certifications.
Interesting thing of note, though, is the RIAA gold, but then they did like they went platinum in some of the other things, like platinum in Canada, double platinum in Canada, platinum in Britain. So
all of that together is like almost 1 more RIAA gold. Is that what we're saying?
I'm saying probably the collective certifications throughout is enough to not move them down.
Perfect. So would you like to give them any points for quality?
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to give them a 0.1.
So am I.
I enjoyed it. Yep. It was interesting, and I thought they did get stronger as they went.
This was a band where if their last album had songs that kept going after I really got into them, could have gotten the 0.2 instead of the 0.1. Like I was on the fence.
Yeah.
Semisonic only 4 albums because Dan Wilson is very busy writing other things. Man. And their 1 album did at least go RIAA platinum.
Yeah.
So
which
that is the equivalent of 2 golds. So they are probably going to just sit there. And then I'm also going to give them a 0.1.
Yeah. I'm going to also give them the 0.1. I think that's
yeah. Everything was just a little bit better than just solid. It was just a step above just solid.
Yep.
Then we're moving on to instrumental talent. I mean, I think in terms of, it depends on how much you want to give all the studio musicians in terms of the credit for the Proclaimer stuff. Because I do think like I mentioned some of the things that I really liked about what was going on with that. Otherwise, it's like strumming acoustic guitar, not done very tightly, like nothing wrong with it at all. I have no knocks on this group artistically. The accents are severe, but I don't think it makes them bad singers.
No, of course not.
Um,
I would argue
s-
that their harmonies are
they're
one of
good.
the
Yeah.
things that sets them apart. Is
Yeah. I
constantly in
mean,
harmony.
I think both of these bands are probably bands that I'm talking about in the fives. This might be an edge to Semisonic for me. Um, as a trio, just doing a little bit more, playing songs I think were a little bit more varied, doing more with their instruments.
I could see that. I could get around to that.
Yeah.
But again, similar scores. Like
Yeah, very
probably
close.
like a 5.5 and 5.3.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm going to give a 5.3 to the Proclaimers and a
Yeah,
5.4 to Semisonic. And then we're
sure.
going to go into songwriting. And I mean, we've kind of given both sides to the Proclaimers here, what we liked and didn't like about their songwriting. All in all, I do think it's a plus for them, though. Some of the
Agreed.
shortcomings are probably going to keep them in the fives, but they are still going to score above the average for me. I would probably have them in a similar to maybe slightly higher place than I put them for instrumental.
Uh, so like similar-ish to a 5.3. You're saying?
Similar to higher, yes, is what I said. So I would be like 5.5 is kind of where I'm thinking.
I was thinking about a 5.5. So we can go with 5.5.
Okay.
It makes sense. And honestly, this is a score that's again hampered by the length of that last album.
Yeah, right.
We just wanted. I would have preferred a 10-song album that was that same length
For sure.
because it would have just meant that
Yes,
some of those
so
tracks had
many
like a
songs like
bridge
really
or
had me going,
yeah,
and then as soon as I was like, "All right, I'm excited to hear what was next," it was already over.
yeah.
Semisonic didn't have that problem. Dan Wilson, as we have mentioned, is like a really strong rock songwriter. Like he can write pop rock songs without being giving all the way into pop and being boring and cliche. Um, he's good. I definitely an above average score. Again, probably a stronger score than I would have given the Proclaimers, but
But
they're
4 albums.
starting from 4 albums, so they're only a 3.4. I think they're like creeping up into the higher end of the threes. I think they're like a 3.8.
I think a 3.8 is a good score for those same reasons. With a 5 album band, I probably would have been leaning towards like a 5.7, 5.8.
Right, they would have been a
Yeah.
little bit higher.
Yep.
The Proclaimers, for me, though, Poetic Talent is arguably their best score, particularly from the last album. I thought it was like very strong.
I would agree. I think their ability to write again, this is something that we both love. Their ability to write culturally relevant, significant lyrics and kind of hide them in fun songs is one of my favorite things that music does. It's one of the reasons we loved Phil Oakes.
For
It's
sure.
one of the reasons we love a lot. I'm not comparing them to Phil Oakes. They're not
No,
like a
but they're
10 like
really
Phil
good.
Oakes
I mean, like
was.
I heard a lot of really,
Yeah.
really good. Like I heard a lot on the third album that would have been like, oh, I would have been okay talking in the eights and nines and like working our way like for a lot of
Yeah.
those songs on the third album.
Agreed.
Not necessarily as high on the other albums, but all in all, this scores I think very solidly in the sixes for me.
Yeah, I was gonna
Um,
say the high sixes up to a 7. I think is fair. It's topical. It's important. It's it's part of you can tell when a group does this much behind the scenes with like activism and different things like that they're including it in their music, which I really respect. I think when you can take something and again write it in a way where the uncomfortable feels comfortable to the masses, you've done well.
and I'm going to
And
give them a
and
6.9.
I love it. 6.9. Nice.
And Semisonic, I also don't think is losing any points here, but they're starting from a place of 4 albums. They're
Yeah.
3.4 to start. I don't know how much further above that. I mean, they're not Proclaimer strong here,
No.
but they're not bad. I would be okay somewhere in the mid threes.
Honestly, I would be higher than that. So, like for
Okay.
instance, if I was going to give we gave the Proclaimers a 6.9.
Mm-hmm.
And if we were equating 6 albums for Semisonic, I would probably be looking at giving them like a 6. I think
Okay.
their lyrics were varied and strong. So I think we give them a 4
A 4.
is my score. So if we want to average that, we can.
4 it is. I'm not
Cool.
arguing with you. X Factor. Is there anything for the Proclaimers that I should know that we didn't cover?
Uh, I didn't see anything. I mean, they've had some cultural moments, but Nothing
Yeah.
too wild. I mean, they had like a Family Guy skit,
Sure. Yeah.
but that wasn't enough really to
No,
to
I mean,
add
I'm
any
not going to
points in
give
anything.
Semisonic points for The Office either.
Yeah.
So I think that's just it. I think we're done with this week's episode, and I think we've got ourselves a winner.
Okay.
And pretty clearly, based on all of what we just said, the Proclaimers and their 11 albums take this one over Semisonic, and there are only 4 albums. Yeah, well,
It's sad, but
it's
it's
sad. They were both.
necessary.
I liked all 6 albums.
It was an enjoyable week.
Yeah. The Proclaimers had a 25.2 as their final score, and Semisonic had an 18, which is, again, unfortunate. It's a product of being a one-hit wonder and also not having 6 albums. So this is a band that I think could have easily scored around a 25 as well.
Yeah.
Had they had enough work.
This would have been a much closer score if
we were talking
Semisonic
about
had
the
2
same
more
number of albums. Yeah, for sure.
Same number, or at least a
Or
similar
at least
number. Yeah, for sure.
So next week, here's the thing. Next week, we asked the question, so what's your gimmick? We got 2 artists who each have kind of a gimmick.
What? Yeah, just a bit.
There's some gimmickiness about the songs that you would know. So,
which, if you are an avid listener of this podcast, you should be ready for. Nick and I love gimmicks.
Oh, we love gimmicks.
We absolutely love when it's just like, the whole reason you're popular is a gimmick and not your music.
And yeah, right, exactly. So they'll be fine. Everything's going to go really well.
We'll see.
Yeah.
I haven't listened yet, so
that's true. I have no
fully
idea.
Expecting to be surprised.
I can say for sure off the top of my head that I will know 3 songs coming in next week.
Probably pretty accurate for me.
Maybe 4.
4? You think you know a full 4?
I think there's another one. I think there's 3 by the one guy. But it's like, I'm always like, oh, wow, is that by him too? Okay, I've heard that around. To be clear, there's one song that I actively seek out to listen to, and it's not by that guy at all.
Understandable.
But anyway, fuck Jerry Lee Lewis.
Listen, thank you all for hanging out. Thanks for tuning in again to another week. Can't wait to see you next week. We are very close to the end of this season.
That's right.
Where we're going to be doing
it's going to be quite the finale.
Show, our best of the rest,
our half season,
all those fun things. We got so much more in tune, so much more in store, Stay tuned and have a great day.
I got a freaky old lady named a Cocaine Katie who embroiders all my jeans.
I'm trying to think of what your third...
Isn't it the like 5 o'clock somewhere or something like that type song?
That makes sense. I mean,
something like that.
Yeah, probably. Because there's obviously the song about meat patties in a happy place.
Yeah, exactly.
And then there's the song about a city named after a beverage.
Yes, which is the one that's far and away the one, and then there's the others that like hang on the coattails of that one.
I would agree. Well, one is a fucking chain restaurant.
Yeah, you're right.
Although technically, don't they both now have chain restaurants?
Probably. I'm sure that they do.
So, whatever.
All right, no.
Which one do you want?
I'll take the one that's not that one that we were just talking about.
You'll take the medical professional?
Correct. Yeah, it's 5 o'clock somewhere. Is somebody else with him together? They do this.
Probably not going to be on the stuff we listen to now.
No, it's not. But it's a 3 times platinum single. So how about that?
Doesn't shock me. The state of Florida exists.
It sure does.
And there are enough people in Florida to make any song or album go platinum.
Again, for now. This is crazy to me.
What are you going to do to Florida?
Oh, I'm not going to do anything, but the ocean levels are going to do something.
Oh, well, yeah,
Um,
that's
this I cannot believe. This is very much like a fish type thing that I'm seeing in his discography, where like the public versus the very like not tiny, but like sizable, but not a lot
yeah,
of people who are completely obsessed are making so many an album from 2004 called License to Chill is number 1 with a platinum, and it's all just covers. It's like this is one of those
dude,
where he can just put
he's
out literally anything. He could just like take a shit
he's
on
fish for
mic.
retirees.
Yeah, and he's not even
100%.
good though. Well,
Well,
I mean, I don't know. I haven't listened, but I mean, I
I'm sure
know
there's people that don't think fish is good.
in terms of playing his instrument,
Well,
there
yeah,
ain't
of
no
course.
way.
We're not comparing their
Or writing
actual
songs that are creative and interesting.
look. It's a
I'm not trying to,
clear-cut case of different strokes for different folks.
of course. Some of us are interested in art.
Oh, oh, yes. Some of us. Let me just drink my tea. Yeah, some of us.
Pencil Thin Mustache. What the fuck is that song?
I can't quite see your eyes when you're looking down your nose at the average listener.
I know, I am. I truly am.
Oh,
Oh, I see a Sam
I'm
Cooke
gonna
cover
love him out
here
of
on
spite
his
now. Oh,
on
don't
his.
say that.
He does another Saturday night
Oh my God, what album? There's so many.
in '93. The album's called Margarita Cafe Late Night Menu.
Oh shit, is it gonna be that License to Chill?
No, oh really? It looks like a lot of these are. A lot of his albums are covers. Like even though he has about 1,000 albums, we might have to go into the like. Do we need to check every one of these to see how many covers this man has put
Well,
out
he's got
versus his own songs?
32. Hold on, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Probably not. Oh, he does some writing with J.D. Souther.
Okay, so the 32 aren't including his compilation album or his live albums because he
Okay.
has 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 compilation albums, which have gone a combined 13 times platinum.
Cheese and rice.
And he's got, oh my God, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14 live albums.
This is insane. I mean, talk about like, you know what he reminds me of, honestly?
What?
Kiss.
Oh, that's
Like more so than Fish. I mean, like he's got the small but dedicated community of Fish, but he's got the like, all right, like who gives a shit about the actual songs? Let's do capitalism here of Kiss. He's got a strong let's do the capitalism part.
yeah.
That is
course
it's
he does.
clearly strong with him.
Well, not anymore.
Well, it was.
Whew.
The Coral Reefer Band. Who was in that? Chase Utley? Jim Mayer?
Did you just say Chase Utley?
It's Michael Utley. I already checked. There's no relation to Chase.
Sad.
I know. I'm a little upset. Was one of the world's richest musicians with a net worth of $1 billion. What?
Easy.
Ugh. All right,
Dude,
I can't.
Easy.
$1
Dude's got
billion.
a series of he's got a chain restaurant
I know.
and resort.
I know, and it makes a lot of sense, but it's just like, okay.
He might be the richest person we've covered.
No, Taylor Swift. Although at the time when we covered her, she was not yet a billionaire.
That's true. It's close.
Yeah.
Well, technically, he's no longer a billionaire either.
Exactly.
So
Okay, I'm gonna go eat dinner and play more Mario Kart,
you know what,
and
man?
just try to exist in this sober way that I am.
Proud of you. Dry
Uh,
January, dry May.
Dry May.
All right. I'll talk to you on Saturday.
Very good.
Look in Slack.
Okay.
Cool.
Adios.
Adios. All right, peeps. I'm gonna be head. Oh, I just lost my my thing, so I can't hear me anymore. But you can still hear me, so I don't really care. I'm gonna be hopping off, heading out. Thanks for tuning in, as always. Come back next week, 5:30 p.m. Thursday. Weather permitting, and by weather I mean we're indoors, but schedule permitting. And other than that, have a great day. Bye.